October 7th, 1989, in GDR. The military, they all pulled together, you know, around Leipzig, because they had these protest demonstrations every Monday night. And since it was the 40th anniversary of GDR coming up, they didn't want that, right? So the military had moved in, the tanks were ready, and they were prepared to just shoot down whoever was daring to take to the streets and protest that night. Well, guess what happened? 70,000 people were protesting out of 16 million. That is not even 1%. Right. Not even 1%. Wow. And what happened? The state crumbled. Wow. They did not know what to do. The soldiers were there. They were ready to receive the orders, but they never came. Wow. They just crumbled up, because there were 70,000 people. Not even 1%. So we don't need masses and masses and masses of people. You need enough people to make an impact. And then what are they going to do? Round them all up? Throw them all in jail? Right. At a certain number of people, it's impossible. You can't do it anymore.
This is Dan Dix here reporting for Press for Truth. We're here in beautiful Vancouver, British Columbia, and I'm joined right now by the one and only Christine Anderson, a European Member of Parliament who has made her way all the way here to the Great White North. So, Christine, thank you so much for taking some time to speak with us here at Press for Truth. I wanted to start with the obvious question. A lot of viewers are probably wondering, what brings you to Canada?
Well, it's like my third time in Canada, and I really have grown fond of your country. It's a beautiful, I mean, just look around. Isn't that, oh, yeah, it's fantastic. So, yeah, I've really grown fond of Canadians in particular. And, yeah, I just, you know, wanted to meet them and speak with them because what especially the Canadian truckers did, that was so amazing and so... It was just fantastic. Well,
a lot of Canadians have grown fond of you because of some of the things that you've said. Yeah. Well, I think a lot of it stems from an outsider of Canada's reaction to how Justin Trudeau has been handling the COVID-19 situation. So for someone who's looking from the outside in, what was your perception of this over the last 3 years of his handling of it all?
Well, I mean, what had been going on in Canada had been going on in every single Western democracy, right? And the reason I stress the Western democracies to such an extent as I do is as simple as this, as simple that. I do not expect freedom, democracy, and the rule of law in China. I don't expect it in North Korea, right? I mean, these are totalitarian regimes. But I do expect it in the Western, especially in the Western democracies. And even here we have seen fundamental rights being infringed upon, have been turned into privileges pretty much, that the government, you know, grants or withholds, depending on how the citizen behaves. So unprecedented what we have seen. And when the Freedom Convoy started rolling, I was like, oh my God, finally someone is doing something. And it was just so massive and so big. And I mean, what are you going to do with a truck, right? You can't just hurl it off and, you know, dispose of it. I mean, they're there, right? And it was like, oh man, this is really going to be a game changer in a good sense. And it actually was. And it gave hopes to so many people around the world that were stuck in the exact same situation, being gaslit by their governments, coerced, manipulated, and, you know, forced into these, you know, despicable mRNA injections. And finally someone did something about it, and that resonated throughout the world. And as I saw it, it was like, you know, the high beams of those trucks, they did not only, you know, had the light on the road right ahead of, in front of them, that light traveled throughout the world and inspired so many people, and then they rose up too. So I will be eternally grateful to the Canadian truckers. They did something really, really big, and I said it before, they will go down in history as probably the most significant protest movement ever.
Well, as you said, it seems like the truckers themselves kind of sparked a movement. There was almost this spirit that resonated with people all over the world, as you said. And is that continuing on? I mean, the trucker, obviously the protest is no longer happening, but this movement for freedom and fighting back, is that still going strong in Europe as it is here?
Yes, it is. It was just, it was that spark that was needed. And there is an expression in German, I don't know if you could translate it, but the toothpaste without a tube, and there was no way of getting it back in, right? So, I mean, what they started, it was like it was done. The genie was out of the bottle. I guess you could, say there is no way of getting it back in. And I kind of realized that that's what we're dealing with here. And that's, why the government, especially the Canadian government, they were, totally nervous about this because they had no clue on how to handle this without having to show their true colors. And they did, and boy, did they.
Well, some people would believe that we're currently in the eye of the hurricane, so to speak, where it's a little bit of the calm of the storm, where this whole plandemic 2.0 could come back, could come raging back. Lockdowns, mandatory masks, mandatory shots, you name it. If this potentially happens in the next week, month, couple of years, who knows, are there some sort of plans that you are working on or that you think the Canadian government ought to be focused on when this happens again?
Well, I can't say when they will do it again, but I mean, they are preparing for it. When you look at their plans of changing the international health regulations in terms of what, the authorities that the WHO is supposed to get. So they're the ones, having the power to call out a pandemic, whether it is a pandemic or not. They just, will say it's one. And then they would be able to seize governing powers of the member states, and this is really dangerous because we're then dealing with a non-elected entity that will decide whether you can leave your house, can go to work, if you can ride a bus, if there is even a potential for a health risk will be enough. And this is really frightening to have that happening. And the reason they're doing that is, it's actually very simple. Because what they figured out during this COVID pandemic is the restrictions they imposed on the people, as hard as they were, they would have actually wanted to go much further than that. But the elected officials couldn't because they have a problem. They will be up for re-election because we still have elections, right? And they will be up for re-election. And if they infringe on people's rights and if they, harass them and, ostracize them as they did, they might not get re-elected. So here comes the WHO in. And what the WHO will actually do, it will provide plausible deniability to the elected representatives, elected officials, the governments, because then they can say, we would have never done that to you. We would not have locked you up in your houses, but it's the WHO. So this is how this is working. And it's what we're talking about is effectively to abolish democratic principles, democracy. That's what's at stake here.
Well, some would suggest that the system is broken, but I often suggest that the system is fixed. How would you say, in this stage of the game, how likely or possible do you think it is for us to turn things around with the avenue of politics? Because I know this is the route you've chosen, and this is an important route to take, but do you feel at this stage in the game it might be difficult for someone who believes in the things that you do to actually get elected these days?
Well, let's go back to the system is broken, right? The system actually is not broken. At least not yet. They're working on that right now. In parts it is. Like looking at the EU institutions, oh yeah, there's so many violations of democratic principles just by the way the EU institutions are set up and how they, interact with one another. But the system is not broken. What is broken is the people that we have been electing for like decades. They will simply not do what the people want them to do. Their job is to, serve in the best interest of the people, to act on their behalf. And to do that, first of all, they would have to listen to what the people want. That's how democracy works, right? Government of the people, by the people, for the people. That is no longer happening. But it's not because of the broken system, it's because of these broken and downright evil people that are just have the audacity of lecturing people at what they should or ought to want, right? And they're doing it in such a despicable way by gaslighting them into thinking, oh, it's for your good, you know, your health, and you want to save the planet, and blah blah blah, the whole shebang. So it's these people, and the citizens actually need to take charge of their democracies once again, because if you sleep in a democracy, you will have a very rude awakening in a tyranny. That's a given, and we are seeing it, you know, where we're going, and we have been seeing it in the last 3 years. So people need to really take charge of their democracies again. They need to hold their elected representatives accountable, and if they are not willing to serve in the best interest of the people, then they need to be run out of office. Don't elect them anymore. It's actually as simple as that, right?
Well, getting back to why you're in Canada, does that essentially what it boils down to is getting like-minded people together and networking within our communities of people who are seeing things in this similar way, so that we can work together to try to make change? Is that what the trip is about?
Yeah, obviously. I mean, the problem we're actually having is the following. We're not talking about 1 or 2 countries going rogue, you know, or just going nuts and, you know, start to oppress their people. We're talking, like I said, about every single Western democracy. Now, had it been only 1 or 2 or 3 countries, you know, then the people in these countries, they would have hoped, and it might have happened, another country to step in and do something about it.
Right.
But who is going to do it?
Right.
It's not going to be China. Right. It's not going to be North Korea. And it's not going to be Russia either. I can tell you that. So who do you think is going to come and do anything about it?
Right.
I'll tell you, no one. There isn't going to be anyone doing anything about it. It is up to the people. They need to take charge. They are in charge. In a democracy, they are the employers of the government and of the elected representatives. And they really need to understand we are calling the shots and not you. And we just need to make it clear to these elected representatives.
Very well said. I often liken it to the pyramidal structure, you know, with them at the top, but it's all of us who make up the base of this entire system. And when enough people step out of that, you know, what happens when you move the bottom brick of a pyramid? The whole thing comes crashing down. So I would agree. I think when enough people come together, like-minded individuals who are you know, basing this on freedom, I think good things are going to happen. So what would you...
Yeah. Let me jump in there. You know, as you said, if enough people come together, and people often think it has to be masses and masses and masses, millions and millions and millions. No, it doesn't. That's not the issue here. I'll give you an example. October 7th, 1989, in GDR, the military, they had all pulled together, you know, around Leipzig, because they had these protest demonstrations every Monday night. And since it was the 40th anniversary of GR coming up, they didn't want that, right? So the military had moved in, the tanks were ready, and they were prepared to just shoot down whoever was daring to take to the streets and protest that night. Well, guess what happened? 70,000 people were protesting out of 16 million. That is not even 1%. Right. Not even 1%. Wow. And what happened? The state crumbled. Wow. They did not know what to do. The soldiers were there. They were ready to receive the orders, but they never came. Wow. They just crumbled up, because there were 70,000 people. Not even 1%. So we don't need masses and masses and masses of people. You need enough people to make an impact. And then what are they going to do? Round them all up? Throw them all in jail? Right. At a certain number of people, it's impossible. You can't do it anymore.
Wow, that's incredible. I've heard of this statistic, this number one time, that 10% is potentially the tipping point. But if 1% is, that is exciting, because we're no longer talking about bricks in the pyramid. We're talking about pebbles at the bottom here that could cause a collapse. And everybody watching this is potentially one of those pebbles. So really, really good analogy. For anybody who might just be learning about you now for the first time, maybe they remember you from kind of, you know, giving Trudeau a piece of his ear that a piece of your mind.
I dressed him down, right?
Yeah. What would you say is the best places for people to go online if they want to continue to follow your work?
Well, I'm pretty much all over. So my Twitter channel is pretty big. So you can go there. I have a Telegram channel. Yeah. So I mean, if you just Google me, for instance, you'll get it. And yeah.
As it is now, but we know what the censorship brigade can be like, and hopefully they don't try to But
Twitter is really fun now.
It is. It's changed a little bit, hasn't it?
It's fun. Yeah, it has. It has changed. Yes.
Cool. All right.
For the better.
Yes. Well, I would encourage people to check her out on Twitter. I'll include a link in the top of the description below. Once again, Christine Anderson, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us here today, and enjoy the rest of your time here in Canada.
Thank you so much for having me. And yes, I do enjoy my time here.
We all want truth. The truth will set you free.